Happy Vlogmas day 13. I know, slacking a little bit, but I committed to doing this, and so still doing this. I got about a week behind after I went to Oklahoma City with some friends, and I was just so caught up in the weekend and having fun that I didn't vlog as much as I planned on. And then the entire week following, I was just enjoying life. There's way more detail to that I'll get into eventually, but for now I want to keep it to myself. But anyways, the whole point of me saying that is, in the past when I've been vlogging and sharing on YouTube specifically, which I'm finding is my favorite platform to share on, I miss a day or I miss a week or whatever the cadence is, and then I'm like, well, I might as well give up because it doesn't matter anymore. But this time around, I'm like, nope, not the case. I still want to share. And this, I think, is showing my resiliency, and that's not something I've talked about on here. Not something I really share all that much, but I was recently having a conversation with someone very close to me, and I asked them what their favorite part about themselves was, and after they told me their answer, they asked me the same question, and immediately I said my resiliency. I think I have been through a lot in my 29, almost 30 years of life, and some I've shared here and on the other platforms I'm active on, some I haven't. And I think throughout it all, I have just become and have been an extremely resilient person. And so this being my most favorite way of sharing, and me realizing that in the last month or so, or however many months I've been sharing on YouTube, I'm gonna stick with it. Like, this is my platform. I have a feeling, and so whether it's the 150 of you that already follow me, more than that, less than that, I just know, like, this is a way for me to be creative and share my story. So I'm gonna keep doing that. I was trying to think of what I wanted to do for today's Vlogmas, and originally I was just gonna do a day in the life, but to be completely honest, my days right now are kind of boring because we're leading up to the holiday weekend. And I've mentioned on here before that every morning I listen to a podcast, and I pick from one of a handful. And today I happen to be listening to a Jay Shetty episode. He has the podcast On Purpose. It's incredible if you're looking for a new listen. But the episode that I listened to is titled 7 Powerful Questions to Successfully Reflect on 2022 and End the Year with Confidence. So in this episode, it's a solo episode, and Jay goes through these 7 questions that he has compiled for himself to answer heading into the new year, and for his listeners to also take the time to answer. So I figured it'd be fun for me to do this, and if you want to take this and do this as well, don't give credit to me, give credit to Jay. I have never really been huge on New Year's resolutions. I have a couple friends that are really big on them. But last year, I was inspired by one of my best friends to create a mood board. That mood board served as a visual representation of what I wanted 2022 to look like. And I kind of lost sight of things. I didn't reflect throughout the year like I wanted to, but I do think I'm gonna make a mood board again this year. I'll share it on Instagram, probably, potentially TikTok. I don't know where I'll share it, on here eventually. And I wanna set in place some like reflection times throughout the year to like check in with myself. But I'm hoping that this list of 7 questions will help me get to a place of understanding, like, what do I want for next year, which is also a big milestone because I turned 30. So yeah, we'll see. But anyways, let's jump into these questions. Question number 1 is, what is the challenge you've overcome this year? I would say the biggest challenge I overcame this year was learning how to let go, to learning how to surrender and trust that I can't control everything. I've been on this spiritual journey this entire year, a lot of which taught me how to trust in something bigger than myself. Some days that looks like God, some days that looks like universe and energies, and I just let myself connect and feel whatever that is and trust that I'm truly gonna get back what I put in, that pouring into my own cup and learning how to love myself and trust myself is going to serve me greater than anything else. And at the end of the day, I have to be happy with who I am and my behavior and the way I react. And I truly think that the challenge that I am confident I have maybe not fully overcome, but started to overcome, is surrendering and knowing that things are gonna play out the way they're gonna play out. I can do my best to plan. I can do my best to control, but at the end of the day, I probably can't plan or control everything. So learning to really live in a state of acceptance, but hopefully enjoyment. That last part I learned in the book I most recently read called A New Earth by Eckhart Tolle. And in there, he says that to truly live a fulfilled life, you should aim to be in one of these three states at all time: acceptance, enjoyment, or enthusiasm. And I think a lot of us, at least from my experience, I live in a state of acceptance a lot of times because there are outside factors in my life that are impacting me and my mood and my ability to do or not do things constantly. And I can't always control that. But what I can control is my state of mind and how I react to it. And getting into a place of acceptance is not necessarily laying down and letting life run you over. It's just saying, you know, this is what it is, and this is what I have to be doing right now, and I know that there will be something better on the other side of this. And this is now just a long-winded way to say that truly the biggest challenge I overcame this year was ending a battle I've had with myself for 29 years and just trusting myself and knowing that truly everything is working in my favor. Question number 2 is, what's a surprise you dealt with? The surprise that I dealt with, that was the biggest surprise probably of my life to date, was coming out as pansexual, being attracted to personality instead of male or female, and really going through that experience all year long. That was a surprise and something I didn't see coming, but I'm really thankful and honestly proud that I not only went through it, but shared a lot of that journey as well. Question number 3 is something you bought this year that you're proud of or made you happy. This is gonna sound really silly and probably vain, but I think the purchase I made this year that made me so happy, primarily because it made me and makes me feel extremely confident, is my lip filler. I've talked about it briefly on here, like way back in February when I first got it done. I did end up getting more filler a couple months ago, but my smile is something I've always been self-conscious of. I have a naturally crooked smile. My jaw is a little offset, but I have pretty healthy teeth, so I don't necessarily want to get veneers. I first invested in my smile back in 2017 when I got Invisalign. Just needed some minor movement to straighten my teeth, and that drastically changed my confidence. So last year I started getting Botox regularly, only really in my forehead and right here in between my eyes. But then around my birthday, or I don't remember exactly when, but earlier in the year, I decided to get a lip flip to see, you know, is filler something I'd be interested in? Is it gonna make my smile worse? Am I going to love it more? And when I smiled with the lip flip, I was like, I need filler immediately. I wanna say that I felt beautiful before I had Invisalign. I felt beautiful before I had the lip flip. I felt beautiful before I got filler, but doing those minor adjustments to my mouth and my smile has day and night changed my confidence. And I say this often, but like, I'm high maintenance, so I don't have to be high maintenance. And that is a purchase that I made this year that I do not regret. It has changed how I feel about myself. And I don't know, it might sound silly, but for people who don't have an insecurity around their smile might not get it. But yeah, that is definitely something I bought this year that made me really happy. Number 4 is, what is the best book and or best podcast you've read or listened to this year? I've read a lot of books this year, but what comes to mind first are kind of connected when it comes to the podcast that stands out the most and the book that stands out the most. I'm gonna go ahead. There are a ton of podcast episodes that come to mind. I'll rattle off a few. So one is a Skinny Confidential interview with Rob Dyrdek. It's incredible, honestly life-changing if you are an entrepreneur or a businessman or woman. Highly recommend that episode. Mood with Lauren Elizabeth. I had 2 episodes from her that stand out. One is with Chelsea Smith from Church Home. That episode, hands down, changed my life. And her episode with Gabby Bernstein changed my life. But I'm going to go with the Gabby Bernstein episode as the best podcast episode of this year for me, because it is really what jump-started my spiritual journey, which has without a doubt changed my life, my outlook on everything I do and the way I think and the way I exist. And it also led me to the best book I read this year, which is really hard because I've read a lot of really good books. If I was gonna pick number 1, it's gonna be The Universe Has Your Back by Gabby Bernstein. It, again, changed my perspective on everything, and I highly recommend it to everybody that I talk to. Number 5 is a really unique question. It's, what are your blind spots for the next year? And the way Jay explained this was, what are some things that you know are happening, could potentially be happening, but you are unsure what to expect? So for example, he's going on a world tour next year, and so that's a blind spot for him. He doesn't know how to properly prepare for it. He doesn't know what to expect from it. Another example he gave was that, you know, we're in a recession, and what's that gonna look like? How could he try to support his audience? So I'm just gonna try to riff on this one. Number 1, my biggest blind spot, I would say, is where I'm going to live. I think I've been open and then closed and then open and then closed about that conversation here and on my other platforms, primarily because so much has changed in the last year, 6 months, literally last month, and all of which have impacted what that's going to look like. I do know that I will likely be moving out of this apartment by the end of February. However, where I'm going to be living is still very much up in the air. So that's a huge blind spot for me. I don't know if I'll be in Kansas City. I don't know if I'll be somewhere else. And although this would typically scare me, I'm not scared at all. It'll be a lot of last minute decisions all surrounding my 30th birthday, but it doesn't feel wrong. So we'll see what that looks like. I think that's my #1 blind spot for next year. The second that comes to mind is what my career is gonna look like. I've been in a state of questioning what I wanna do, what that looks like for a while now. I know that next year is going to bring change when it comes to my career, but I have no idea what that's gonna look like. So that's also a huge blind spot. But again, something I'm very excited for, nervous about, very excited for. #6 is what made you the happiest this year. I have so many things that come to mind when I think of what made me happiest. And a really simple yet vague answer would be the people I've got to spend time with, many of which are my closest friends who I consider family. I'm finally happy because I chose to lean into being vulnerable again and pursuing relationship. And it is crazy to me what can happen when you choose to lean into that. We are built for connection, and that is something I've known for a long time, and yet I feel so safe being secluded. But I've really leaned into the meaningful connections in my life, the friends who choose to lean into me and put time and effort into our relationships. I've chose to pursue people who pursue me back, and I think that this kind of connects to the first question when I talked about, like, you have to have, your cup has to be full in order to fill the cups and support the cups of others. And being able to be a strong connection point for my friends and loved ones, that makes me happier than anything ever could. Also, my judgment is a little clouded with this answer because I met somebody. And I want to say that has made me the happiest this year because it was not expected at all. I think a relationship like this is something I have been manifesting and praying for a long time. And the second I just like trusted timing, it started falling into place. So that does have an impact in, you know, what made me happy this year. But I would be lying if I said like the first 11 months of the year I spent loving so hard on my friends and spending a lot of time with them and growing with them and traveling with them. And I think just having all of that time was everything. We are all growing and getting older, and as our lives naturally evolve, you know, we won't get these opportunities forever. So that really made me happiest. #7 is a person you couldn't have gotten through this year without. That's hard for me to answer because I have a handful of best friends who have been my rock for anywhere from the last 2 years to the last 15 years. So I definitely have more than one person when it comes to this. But I'm gonna use this to reach out to them and let them know that, and continue to do so and reach out to people as I think of them and think of the moments that I couldn't have survived without them. Okay, those are the 7 questions. I feel like I rambled on and on about what my 2022 looked like from this perspective, but hopefully it gives you some insight or an outline to highlight your year ahead of any goal setting or planning that you have for 2023. I cannot believe that the new year is so close. Christmas, if you celebrate Christmas, is less than a week away. Like, where did this year go? I truly, it's wild because I feel like it's flown by, but it also feels like some of the things I did earlier this year was a lifetime ago. And I'm just so happy to be able to do this and share who I am and my story with anyone that wants to listen. And we're gonna work on getting caught up with Vlogmas. Happy Vlogmas Day 13. I hope you have a good week.